to my channel and welcome to my website. My name is Daryl and this is Programming in Any Language. The website is www.black-duck.com. It's where you'll find all my videos organized in logical order. It's time to look at multiform application. What is a multiform application? It's just like it sounds. Multiple forms. You've used them all the time. Maybe you just weren't aware that they were multiforms. Your phone's app are a good example. There's also only so much real estate on a phone screen, so when you need to display a lot of information, it makes sense to use a number of forms and only display what is relevant at the time. This video gives you the basics. It shows you how you can create a form, add data to a form, display multiple forms, and so on. It's pretty easy. Let's watch. We did an application in the past that had to do with Formula One racing and to track drivers and their speeds over different tracks over the course of a season. And we had, basically, we had information coming into the application as we key in, and we would have information coming out when we displayed the races and had it look so we could actually see what each driver did in the course of a season. In order to make that work, we needed a lot of real estate on that particular application. We didn't want to combine the input and the output in the same area because we would not be using the output when we're keying in. We wouldn't be using the input when we're looking at the output. So we used panels and group boxes, but panel primarily to actually segregate the input and the output into two almost like forms. And it worked. It worked just fine. We don't need necessarily do that, though. We could actually create multiple forms, and that's what this video is all about, is to kind of show you how you can create multiple forms in an application and make that all work. And it's kind of nice. It works very well. If you look at the screen right now, you can see that we're going to create multiple forms in a project. Each project that has a form in a Visual C# has a class, the default name of which is Form 1. We've known that. We haven't bothered to change them. We certainly can, but we haven't. And its class is also named Form 1, which is stored in a form1.cs file. And when you look at your folders in a Visual Studio application, you can see there's a lot of different files in there. Form1.cs is one of them. That's resx file is out there. A whole bunch of stuff is out there. And it's difficult sometimes to keep track of it, so that's why they actually created the solution file in your project to help you track all these things so you could deal with it. A Visual C# project can have multiple forms as well. Each form has its own class and can be instantiated and displayed on the screen. When you add additional forms to the project, you add additional classes which are stored in their own files. When you create event handlers for a specific form's controls, you write them as methods to the form's class. Let's take a look at this. In front of you, I have a project with a form. I'm going to change this form's properties right now to something like 400 by 400. What I want to do now is actually go out and show you how you can actually create a second form. To do that, you simply go to your Solution Explorer window and click on the name of your project. I've got demo multi-form sitting right here. I'll right-click on this and I'll get a application that says Add. I can also do it up in here in these windows up here and add something to the project. But I'm going to do it right down here and do an Add, which is going to give me a new item. So I'm going to ask for the new item. I'm going to put that in place. And it's going to say, what do you want to add? And it gives me a bunch of choices here, contents. And I find Windows Form Windows Form right here, and click on this. And I'm going to give it a name right down in here. I'm going to call this Display. So it's going to be Display Form, and I'll add that to my package. And up it pops, and it gets a fairly large size on here. And we can go to that property right now and go to the properties of this form and make it 400 by 400 as well. So we'll do that. And now we have two forms on our screen, a design form, which is called Form 1, and a display form, design form, which is called Display. They're all set to work. And if you look at your Solution Explorer, you can see that I've got a Form 1 sitting right here, which has got the designer and the resx form in here. And if I look at my display form, it also has a designer and a display resx sitting inside there. So we've got two different forms that can hold code basically and run for us. So in order to display a form, when we have two of these forms up here, we need to create an instance of it. And we do that by giving it a name. And in this case, on the example you're seeing on the screen right now, we have a form called error form, which you may have created. Ours is called display. This is called error form. And they're creating something called my error form, and they make it equal to new error form, which creates an instance of that form. The above code declares the reference variable named my error form. It creates an object of the error form class in memory, and assigns a reference to the object of the my error form variable. After creating that instance, you can use the show dialog method to display the form. For example, my error form.show dialog, and it will display the method, the screen, display the screen, and give it the focus to that form as well. So let's give this a shot and see what actually happens. I'm going to go to my form 1 right here, and I want to actually create a couple buttons on it so I can actually do this thing. So I'm going to open my common controls. I want to create a button on here. I'm going to create the exit button for this thing so I can get out. And I'll go to my properties on that, and I'll call this thing exit. And I'm going to change the font on it to be a 12 and make it bold. And I'll make it a little larger so it can see that exit button right there. And I'm going to go up here and give it a name called BTN exit, using Hungarian notation in my case. I've got that in place now. I'd like to create another button called display. So we'll make a copy of this, put it over here, and put it off to the side over here. And I'm going to go ahead and change the name, the text on this, display. And I'm also going to change the name in code to button display, BTN display. So now I've got 2 pieces of code out here. I'm also going to go to my other form now, and I want to have an exit button on here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this exit button and go out to that one and just do a paste. And that puts the exit button on here. And interesting enough, it's all set to go. It's all the keeps the name button exit, but it's a different button exit because it belongs to this form. But it's there and ready to go. I'm also going to go ahead and create a label. So I'll put a label on this form, and I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to make it auto size false, so I can stretch it out and make it large. And then I'm going to call it label out. And I also want to change the font on this thing to 12 and bold. Okay. And it looks almost centered in the form. I won't bother formatting it right now. I'll just put it up there like this. So, and we want to go down here and change the, I want to put a box around it so I can see it when I get rid of any labels on here. So we'll go ahead and get the border style become a fixed single. Now I'll go down to the bottom here and change the text on here so it's centered in the middle of the form, and we'll erase what's actually there. In fact, what I might put in there is hello world. And pop that in, so that's all set to go. So now we've got 2 forms. No code written, but we've got 2 forms here. What I want to do now is I want to display this form. So I'm gonna use the display button to actually do that. Before I do that, I'm going to set up the exit buttons. I'll double click on exit on the main form, and I'll say close application. When this form is closed, it closes all the other forms that may be open at a given time. So we'll just say this and set it up. And we've done that before. That's been no problem whatsoever. We'll now go to our display form, double click on its exit button, and we'll do the same thing. This time it'll be close form, and we'll say this dot close. And it has the same code in it. This represents the name of the form itself. So you're putting the name of the form in front of the object. We're going to do that for other things as well as we go into this thing. So we're kind of set here. Now we're going to our display button right now, our display form. Hard to keep these things tracked. Double click on the display button itself, and here's our button display. In order to access that form, we need to create an instance of it, make a copy of it, because really what's happening right now is we've got a cookie cutter out there called display, and we want to actually make a copy of it. So I'm going to say that I'd like display and we'll say, actually, yeah, and we'll say display form, we'll call it. And we'll make that equal to new display. So this is going to make something we can refer to by name, display form. It'll be a copy of this display form we actually added to our project. And if we want to display it now, we would simply go down here and say display form show dialog and put it in place right there. And we can save this and run it and start it. And what happens now is the exit button will work, but we'll try the display button first. We'll click on this and bang, up comes our other form, display form, saying hello world. And I can move this thing around. I cannot do anything here. This guy is basically got the focus right now. I can exit it and it's fine. I can display again, and I can bring this up, and I can exit here and it closes. Oop, I can't. I have to actually go out here and close it and then exit here to close off the application. So that's it. Now, if we look at how these forms are actually processed, there's a flow of execution you can follow. In the modal form, and that's the one you were seeing just now, the statement next to the show dialog method will not execute until the modal form is closed as shown. You can do all your statements you want there, and because of the message box show dialog, this will turn on the form and show it to you, and it goes off to that form and gives it the focus. It does not come back to these until you get out of that form. So this code does not execute until after you've closed that other form. If we use a modeless form, we can use the show dialog. Notice the dialog piece is missing here, just a show piece, and it will execute immediately after the modalist form is displayed. So in this case, the code will show, modalist form.show will pop up, and these statements will execute right away and make it all happen. And it's kind of interesting how this works. If we take a look at this thing, it works like this. I'm going to go ahead and go to my form, my main form, go to my display button on here, and where we actually were going to do the show the dialog, I'm going to take the dialog piece out and just make it show. That's the only change I'm going to make here. I'm going to do a file save to this thing, run it, and start it, and up comes our form. We can display it, and it's there. Now the interesting thing is I can hit display again, and another one pops up. So it's creating several instances of the same form that we're using here. The exit button works to any one of these. Anytime I give it the focus, it actually works there, but I can always bring up another one and pop it on here. Now, when I go back to my main form, this exit button will close off the entire application. So if I hit exit here, everything's gone. So that's how that works. Now, how do we get access to be able to change something? On our display form, we've got this label up here. We'd like to change it from this form. So our display button wants to do something different. So I'm going to go to my code here, and I'm going to say right in here that my display form dot LBL out LBL out dot text is equal to what a nice day. But notice I have an error in label out. It doesn't see that. It's got a protection level. It's actually inaccessible for me. So what you need to do in order to make these things work is you need to actually go into the modifier section in your properties and change the public, change the private to public. And this is for a label itself or any of the objects you want to access on it. So when you have access on there, you need to change that modifier thing to make it actually function like that. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. By doing that, you end up being able to type in your code. You can say your greetings form dot greeting form is equal to new greetings form, and then go into our label, for example, and identify it by the form name and the object name and the property, and put in what you want in that property. And then you can show your dialog. So we're basically identifying the form, the object on it, and the property on it, and making that change. So let's go ahead and do that. In order to get rid of this error, we need to go out to the display form, go into the properties window, which we're at right now, find this label that we want to change, and find that modifier right here, and change private to public. Once that's done, I can do a file save, and I can run my application. Oh, actually, I should go back and take a look. Oh, is our error gone? Our error is gone. So we can run it. And we display our form. And it changed what's in that label file from the other form. And I think we're still in a multi-form mode series, so we got our modalist form, so we can actually go in here and run it just like this. So it's kind of handy to actually do that. Now here's an application that was built a while back, and it basically is a food facts application. It's got two forms on it, as you can see, a main and a nutrition form. If we look at the main form, it basically has what we're seeing here. It has several radio buttons, a display, and kind of intuitively understand that if you click on one of these things, it's going to display a banana, or it's going to display the information about air pop popcorn or a blueberry muffin. If we go to the nutritional form and view its designer, we can see it's basically a template. Food, calories, fat grams, and carb grams is showing up here, and we've got some empty labels sitting out there. So what's going to happen is the main form is going to grab some information, depending on what you selected here, and pop it into this form right here. We can look at the code in this guy by simply looking at the main form code and seeing that indeed that's what it's doing. It's got a display button right here, and we've got the form actually being created right here, where the instance of the form, and then it has an if statement, or several if statements sitting here. After looking at the radio button bananas checked, that we're going to fill the Nutriform label.text with 1 banana, the calories with 100, the Nutriform LBL fat with 0.4, and so on the line. Otherwise, if it's a popcorn's checked, it'll do this. Radio muffins check, it'll do this. And we've got a show here, so it's a modalist form along to display all of these things. So let's take a look and see how this thing runs. We bring it up, and here's our bananas have been selected. I'll go ahead and display, and up comes the banana information. Now the interesting thing is, because it's a modalist form, I can click on air pop popcorn and bring it up, and it shows that information as well. They're both here. I can also do a blueberry muffin, and it pops up, and all that shows up here. I can actually bring up bananas again and get another one to pop up here, and we've got it sitting over here. I can close off the first one if I like. It's all independent. Or I can close out the entire application and it all goes away. So basically, accessing the form is very simple. It's no, the objects on the form is very simple. It's just like working with any label on any form. The only difference is you have to identify the form name in front. That's kind of what that exit button we saw before. I think we've got one here in the exit button right here. Is we always have the this on there. This represents this form. So you can make a change in your internal form, use this, and it'll hit the object right inside that form and work with that as well. That's it. Multiforms are fairly straightforward, and they're kind of a very useful tool, and it'll give you a lot more real estate when you're writing your applications. I'll start using multiple forms in many of my upcoming applications. It's not uncommon to write an application for a user and end up with an application of, say, 20 or more forms, and it helps simplify our programming. Well, put this in your programming toolbox. It'll come in real handy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to use the website for easy access to all my videos. And if you get a chance, please subscribe. That way, you'll be notified when something new is available. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.